Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is Friday night, 9:30 p.m., Calgary, Alberta, and I'm happy to be here. It is April 30th, last day of April, and I'm happy you can be here with me. This is Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is Up to Us. It's a 30-minute live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and I have my chat room open. You're welcome to go sit in there if you'd like, and we're continuing on with the topic of domestic violence and abuse from Help Guide. It's http helpguide.org. They have a great article on there regarding domestic violence and abuse and signs and symptoms really of an abusive relationship. What is domestic abuse and what are the signs and symptoms? And also, how to get help, right? Such a problem, domestic violence and abuse, and it's everyone's problem. And, we're talking grandmothers, mothers, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends, neighbors. Everyone is affected by it. Co-workers. It's in everyone's really daily life. It's amazing, like how many people are involved in domestic violence and domestic assaults every day. It's horrible. It has to stop. It's abuse, and so that's why I'm covering this topic. We did this one before, probably back in December sometime, or January, and I just thought, we'll cover it again because we cannot talk about domestic violence and abuse enough. So that's what we're doing tonight. We're going to continue on with this topic, and I'm just so happy that you can join in and be here with me. Thanks everybody for all your support. I really appreciate it, and it's just so important that we get the facts, we get the information, start looking around at how we can get involved to help people out, and in our own worlds, especially in our own lives and the people around us and in our families and in our friendships, and make sure that we're supporting these people who are in domestic violence, in abusive homes, and make sure that they get help and that they know that you're there for them, right? It's so important because there's so many people suffering right now from this sort of thing. And I grew up in a home with domestic violence and abuse, and I know what it's like to grow up as a child in an abusive home. And so I know what it's like. I know what my mom went through, and then I also know what she did to my dad in retaliation. I know what happened to the kids as a result of it, and direct abuse from both of them. All the siblings suffered at their hands, and so I completely understand the full gamut of abuse, right? And so, it's horrible, and it just ruins people's lives, and it's hard to recover from it, but there is help and there is hope, and the help might not come when we, as fast as we need it to, and it might not be the kind of help that we actually really need, but we need to keep reaching out, and we need to really, as a society and a communities, need to come together and decide where the funding is going to go, because it is literally lawmakers, and people that do the funding and whatnot for these different types of things that in our communities go by what the public tells them to do. So if the public doesn't know what needs to happen and no one is directing where those funds are going to go, these shelters are understaffed, they're overcrowded, there's not enough help for people out there, women who are on the run from domestic violence situations, mostly women, but there are men out there who are running as well. Believe it or not, I know men who have been in domestic violence and abuse situations, and they did not want to hit back, they did not want to retaliate and hit their wives, and so they lose custody of their children, they lose their homes because of their abusive wives. I know this happens, and I've seen it firsthand. But the fact is that more women are abused, and it's just a fact. And I wanted to go over, before we start the Help Guide article again, which is where we left off, this is not a professional show, by the way. I don't hold any professional counseling certificates or therapist certificates. I can't give any legal advice. I'm just a person who sits on Blog Talk Radio, a concerned citizen, because I believe that abuse just needs to be talked about every single day in the mainstream, and I talk about it to whoever will listen. I just want to add my voice to all the voices that are out there speaking out right now. So that's what I'm doing. I just want to help them, because I know there's been people out here speaking about this for a long, long time while I was sitting on the couch contemplating ending my life because of an abusive childhood. And then I finally, 3 years ago, woke up, smelled the coffee, and said, man, I got to get off the couch and I got to start making some noise. I can no longer sit back in silence, and I can no longer sit back and not get involved, because I know what it's like. I know what these people are going through on a daily basis, being beaten and abused, verbally assaulted, psychologically assaulted in every way, sexually assaulted, whether it's an adult or a child. I know what it's like, and it's wrong. It has to stop. And I figured, hey, I'm just going to get involved. So I'm just a concerned citizen who pays to do my own blog talk show, because I really believe that we all need to get our voices out there. Every single one of us needs to get our voice out there and start talking about abuse, get it out in the mainstream. Society it's never going to change as long as it's pushed under the carpet, hidden away. No one talks about it. No one knows about it. We keep it all hidden away, and then nobody has to deal with it, right? As long as nobody knows, that's why abuse is allowed to go on, and that's why children are being killed at the hands of their parents and caregivers, because people will not report it. There's people that know children are being abused and they don't report it. It's unfortunate. And then, it's because the systems that we have in place are not perfect. Obviously, they need a lot of work and overhaul. As much as I'm so happy that they are there to help get these kids out of these homes, these abusive homes, fact is that we need better systems, and we really need to stop this thing. Kids are dying every day at the hands of their parents and caregivers, little babies, precious babies, and adults. Women are being beaten and killed by their partners, and by their husbands, and wives are beating up their husbands. It's just ridiculous, and it really needs to stop. And it's a huge, huge problem. So I figured, hey, why not? I've got nothing better to do but start yakking and talking about this stuff. So thank you so much for tuning in. And if you're a young person under the age of 18, I just advise you to please get permission to listen to this show. There's a lot of adult content on here. That's why. It's ultimately about stopping child abuse. It's for children, and stopping all human rights abuses, really. But there's a lot of adult content on here, and young people, if you're not so sure about the topic, maybe you haven't heard too much about abuse and the different kinds of abuse, it could be kind of upsetting for a young person to listen to, and also it might be just hard to understand what I'm talking about, and then you might not know who to get help from, and so you want to have someone listen to this with you so they can help you find the information, as well as keep yourself online, safe while you're online, because there are millions of child sexual predators out there trying to get a hold of children, and I think you should have someone know what you're doing online at all times to protect your life, to protect your safety, right? Because kids are, being assaulted by child sexual predators, and if they're not killed, their lives are ruined because of these assaults, and so you do not want that to happen to you. So I advise that you would get someone who you trust to start checking in on what you're doing online, and make sure that it's okay for you to listen to this show and to do whatever you're going to do online. Make sure you don't give any information out. Never tell anybody your real name online. Don't tell them where you live. Don't give them your phone number. Don't allow them to phone you, because as soon as you pick up the phone, they have call display. They can get your phone number, and they can trick you into meeting them places, and then it turns out to be a child sexual predator. So make sure that you get educated and get the facts on online safety, and keep yourself safe, okay? So I want to look at really quickly, before we started going into the domestic violence and abuse from Help Guide, I wanted to look at this article from NCADV, the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. It's an article. You can pull it up off their website, and you can take a look at it for yourself. We're going to read through it really quickly. It's called Domestic Violence Facts, Why It Matters. I'm just reading right from the page here. Domestic violence is the willful intimidation, physical assault, battery, sexual assault, and or other abusive behavior perpetrated by an intimate partner against another. It is an epidemic affecting individuals in every community, regardless of age, economic status, race, religion, nationality, or educational background. Violence against women is often accompanied by emotionally abusive and controlling behavior, and thus is part of a systematic pattern of dominance and control. Domestic violence results in physical injury, psychological trauma, and sometimes death. The consequences of domestic violence can cross generations and truly last a lifetime. It says, did you know 1 in every 4 women will experience domestic violence in her lifetime? An estimated 1.3 million women are victims of physical assault by an intimate partner each year. 85% of domestic violence victims are women. And historically, females have been most often victimized by someone they know. And females who are 20 to 24 years of age are the greatest risk of non-fatal intimate partner violence. Most cases of domestic violence are never reported to the police. And that's a fact. Children who witness domestic violence. It says witnessing violence between one's parents or caretakers is the strongest risk factor of transmitting violent behavior from one generation to the next. Boys who witness domestic violence are twice as likely to abuse their partners and children when they become adults. And 30 to 60% of perpetrators of intimate partner violence also abuse children in the household. Isn't that the truth? I know that firsthand. Sexual assault and stalking. 1 in 6 women and 1 in 33 men have experienced an attempted or completed rape. Now, can you imagine? 1 in 6 women and 1 in 33 men have experienced an attempted or completed rape. That's just crazy. Nearly 7.8 million women have been raped by an intimate partner at some point in their lives. That's 7.8 million. You know, that's almost 8 million women have been raped by an intimate partner at some point in their lives. That's crazy. Sexual assault or forced sex occurs in approximately 40 to 45% of battering relationships. 1 in 12 women and 1 in 45 men have been stalked in their lifetime. And 81% of women stalked by a current or former intimate partner are also physically assaulted by their partner. 31% are also sexually assaulted by that partner. So that's just crazy. Homicide and injury, they list some information here regarding that. Almost 1/3 of female homicide victims that are reported in police records are killed by an intimate partner. That's 1/3, almost 1/3 of female homicide victims that are reported in police records are killed by an intimate partner. And in 70 to 80% of intimate partner homicides, no matter which partner was killed, the man physically abused the woman before the murder. So that's in almost 80, like between 70 and 80% of intimate partner homicides. No matter which partner was killed, the man physically abused the woman before the murder. Well, that's crazy. Like, when you think about this, this is just insane, and this is going on. It's real. It's not just the movies. This is real, honest-to-God stuff. I've seen it firsthand myself. I had friends who were living in domestic violence situations who had abusive boyfriends. I had friends whose parents were in domestic violence and abuse situations, and I grew up in a household that was full of domestic violence and abuse, and I saw it in my own family, friends, families. I saw it all around me. I grew up with it, and so I know it affects a lot of people, and I knew other people who had the same issues going on too that I didn't pal around with when I was young, but it's just crazy the amount of people that are abused by someone in their household, whether it's an adult or a child, right? It says less than 1/5 of victims reporting an injury from intimate partner violence sought medical treatment following the injury. That's right, because out of fear, they don't want to report it, they don't know what will happen, the abuse will just get worse. It's crazy. Intimate partner violence results in more than 18.5 million mental health care visits each year. That's insane. 18.5 million mental health care visits each year. That's what intimate partner violence does. It's so extremely bad. It has a huge economic impact as well. The cost of intimate partner violence exceeds $5.8 billion each year. $5.8 billion. That's per year. $4.1 billion of which is for direct medical and mental health services. So it's almost all of it's for direct medical and mental health services. That's what it's costing. It's costing taxpayers, but who cares about the money? It's costing people's lives. I mean, who cares about the money? It's people's lives ruined, and it's so hard for these people to get their self-esteem back and to learn how to trust and to get any joy back into their life. It's so incredibly hard on people. Victims of intimate partner violence lost almost 8 million days of paid work because of the violence perpetrated against them by current or former husbands, boyfriends, or dates. Or even women, right? Women abusers. This loss is the equivalent of more than 32,000 full-time jobs and almost 5.6 million days of household productivity as a result of violence. So it just tells you, it affects everyone in every way. It says there are 16,800 homicides and 2.2 million medically treated injuries due to intimate partner violence annually, which costs $37 billion. So there are 16,800 homicides. That's almost 17,000 people killed by a partner, an intimate partner, each year. 17,000 people. That is crazy. It says reporting rates. Domestic violence is one of the most chronically underreported crimes, and only approximately 1/4 of all physical assaults, that's 1/4, 1/5 of all rapes, and 1/2 of all stalkings perpetrated against females by intimate partners are reported to the police. Protection orders. Approximately 20% of the 1.5 million people who experience intimate partner violence annually obtain civil protection orders. That's only 20%. Approximately 1/2 of the orders obtained by women against intimate partners who physically assaulted them were violated. They were just, they were just violated, so it didn't do any good anyway. More than 2/3 of the restraining orders against intimate partners who raped or stalked the victim were violated. So it just shows you what's actually going on. The NCADV, the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, they have some great information here and a great website. And you can. They said here, if you need help, call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. Now this article is quite old, so I don't know if these numbers are any good, but you can get the information out of your phone book. You can just go get into your phone book, start looking around for if you need to make a phone call, if your life is being threatened and your life is in danger or your children's lives are in danger. You really need to get some help, and you need to get the help right away. Do not wait and think, oh, well, this person will change, my partner will change, and, it'll get better. And, if your life is being threatened, you cannot just say forget about it, because you owe it to yourself to have a good life and get help that you need, and you owe it to your children as well. If you have any children in the home and they're being abused as well, or even it's so harming for them, just even if they aren't being abused, just to be in that environment, because I know all about it and what it does to you, right? And then what it does to children. We're going to go on and talk about that later. We're going to talk about impacts on children, dynamics of domestic violence on children. I've got some great articles here I found on the web, just searching around, right? And it's just so important to get this information and really, take it to heart. And if you are in an abusive situation and you're living in an abusive home, being assaulted by a partner, you really have to reach out and get help and talk to someone, a domestic violence counselor, therapist, make a phone call, keep it anonymous if you want to, but just make sure that you get some help, because you don't deserve to suffer in that situation. You really don't. My mom didn't. And then she turned around and directed her anger at my dad, so my dad didn't. Like, nobody does, right? The kids don't deserve it. Nobody does. So get some help. And I wanted to continue on here with Help Guide, this article that we were looking at Wednesday night, and it's domestic violence and abuse from helpguide.org, http helpguide, HELPGUIDE.org, helpguide.org, understand, prevent, and resolve life's challenges. This is a great website for everything regarding child abuse, domestic violence, psychological issues, stress, coping, just anything that, like, life's challenges that come up, depression, grief. There's so much good information on there. Eating disorders. I mean, you name it, it's on there. You can go and check that website out. I really like it. The information is very good, and I really think the information is very inclusive, and it's really well put together. So, I use their stuff quite a bit to talk to people, because it is some good information. And we left off with violent and abusive behavior is the abuser's choice. And that was on Wednesday night. Abusers use a variety of tactics to manipulate you and exert their power. And these are, we listed out, we were talking about dominance, humiliation, isolation, threats, intimidation, denial, and blame, which we left off at intimidation there. Those are some of the tactics that abusers will use to manipulate you and to get to take control over you, right? Dominance, for sure. Humiliation, isolation. This way they dominate you, they humiliate you, they bring you down, and then they isolate you and keep you from your family. Then they threaten you, with everything from killing you or killing your children or killing your family members or pets, to even killing themselves and saying that, oh, if you leave me, I'll kill myself, or I'll kill you. There's always these threats, and all kinds of horrible things like that. We left off with intimidation, so we'll start up right there. Your abuser may use a variety of intimidation tactics designed to scare you into submission. Such tactics include making threatening looks or gestures, smashing things in front of you, destroying property, hurting your pets, or putting weapons on display. The clear message is that if you don't obey, there will be violent consequences. And, I grew up in a home full of intimidation. And my mom was very intimidating, and she was very abusive and very violent. But she grew up in an abusive home. She learned from her mother how to do that very well. And my grandmother passed that right on to her. She passed it right on to us. And, it was very, if I had a certain look on my face, then I would be beaten, and she would smash things and throw things and just trash the kitchen and trash the house and throw hot coffee on people and throw hot food at you, if you came in the room, and she was upset, and she was very, very intimidating, actually, and it was very hard to be around that. And our whole home life was like that. It wasn't just her. My dad was intimidating as well, because you never knew what he was going to do. He was he wasn't very stable, and he was psychologically having a lot of problems. He was borderline schizophrenic, which I still believe that he still is. He had a lot of problems, and my mom did too, and they could not control their anger issues. So they were very intimidating people, and intimidating towards each other, always fighting, and you just never knew when it was going to explode into some huge battle, and so it was hard to deal with it, and I know what that's like to grow up as a child in that situation. Denial and blame. Abusers are very good at making excuses for the inexcusable. They will blame their abusive and violent behavior on a bad childhood, a bad day, and even on the victims of their abuse. Your abusive partner may minimize the abuse or deny that it occurred. He will commonly, or she will commonly, shift the responsibility onto you. Somehow, this person's violent and abusive behavior is your fault. And, that was just the way it was in our home. It was all about denial and blame, and it was all about, it wasn't their fault, and it was just that they had this miserable life, and they hated their kids, and they hated each other, and they blamed everything on each other and the kids. So everybody, was just blaming everybody. And the kids, of course, none of us were happy about the whole thing. It's not fun to have your head smashed in, and it's just not fun to be beaten around all the time, and cursed at and spit on and everything else. It's just a really bad way to grow up, and it's a really bad way for adults to treat each other in front of children. And my parents were very much played that whole denial and blame game, and they were always making excuses for themselves. Like each one of them was the victim, right? But both of them were actually very much the perpetrators. So it was kind of this is their way of dealing with it, so that they didn't have to take the blame, and they didn't have to take the responsibility for their actions towards each other and also towards the kids, right? And they got a lot of support from neighbors and from friends that way, because they would make each other look really bad to neighbors, and neighbors would, of course, some would support my mom, and then some would support my dad. Pretty soon they liked them both, and then the kids were just left out, and nobody cared whether we were being abused or not. Nobody even really batted an eye, and they kind of thought that we actually deserved some of that treatment, and almost sort of egged it on. Like they would say, oh, well, you should just smack that brat. She's just a brat, when they were talking about me. And, of course, my mom was more than happy to do that. And, unfortunately, the whole issue is the reason I was behaving the way I was is because I was being abused. And so my parents had a lot of support. Sure, they did. And the kids, we all suffered, and most of us are not alive today. There's a few of us left. And it's just unfortunate. And even some of the ones that are left today still have made actually no attempt to even acknowledge the abuse, and they don't acknowledge my brothers. They don't acknowledge anything. Period. They just, I don't know what that is, right? Denial, right? It's the same old thing, right? Just denial. So, well, that's what happens to people, right? And then they go on to talk about reasons we know an abuser's behaviors are not about anger and rage. This would be interesting here. It says he does not batter other individuals, or let's say he or she does not batter other individuals. The boss who does not give him time off, or the gas station attendant that spills gas down the side of his car. he waits until there is no witnesses and abuses the person he says he loves. And then here's another one. If you ask an abused woman, can he stop when the phone rings or the police come to the door? She will say yes. Most often when the police show up, he is looking calm, cool, and collected. And she is the one who may look hysterical. If he were, if he were truly out of control, he would not be able to stop himself when it is to his advantage to do so. See, it's all about control, and it's all about manipulation. You know it, because that's how they know how to do that. As soon as my parents got busted for child abuse, when my brother fingered him out at school, they had to go to court. And they went to court, and they pleaded with my mom pleaded with the judge. My mom told me this. Like, my mom was always telling me these things, and really it was to her detriment, because I kept it very close to my, I remembered it, because I was like, this is very important to hang on to for later reference. You know what I mean? Because she said that when my brother told the teacher, that he was afraid to go home, she took him to the nurse. The nurse, they checked him out, and he was beaten and everything. My dad had beaten him up, and he said he was afraid to go home. He was afraid of my dad. So they went to court. My mom cried the blues and said, "Oh, don't take my children. They're all I have, and we'll go to counseling and whatever." They had to go to court-ordered counseling. They went twice, and then that was it. And then we left the country. But the thing is my parents, once that happened, of course they're going to go to the court and say, "Oh, we love our children, and we don't want to lose our children." They should have just let us go. I mean, not that the situation would have been any better in a foster care situation, because we all know what happens in foster care. Sorry, I mean, I know there's got to be good foster care homes out there, but there's an awful lot of bad ones out there too, and that's the problem, right? Abused children go into abusive homes. But anyway, the thing is they're very abusive and very manipulative. Abusers, they know how to manipulate people. They know how to manipulate the system. They know how to manipulate police officers. So when the police officers show up at the home and the wife is of course out of her mind because she's being abused, right? Or the partner, let's just say, whichever partner it is. And then the other abuser is sitting back calm and collected. Nothing's wrong here. And, this is just exactly what it is. It's all about control, manipulation, and they know what they're doing, So that's why you can't mess around. If you're in an abusive home, you have to make sure that you have a safety plan. And there's safety plans all over the place. You can get a safety plan right from Help Guide. You can get I'm pretty sure they have a safety plan on there. I wouldn't doubt it. As a matter of fact, I shouldn't say that, but the thing is they have everything else there. But I know, here's the one, a safety plan that you can get from, it's domesticviolence.org, www.domesticviolence.org, and what can I do to be safe? So this is a personalized safety plan. You can get your own safety plan so that you can get yourself safe. And there's another safety plan that you can get from the NCADV, the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, www.ncadv.org, and then /protect yourself, a safety plan. And there's some good information there, regarding getting a safety plan, what to do, what to have in place just in case you have to leave in a hurry because your life is being threatened. And you do want to make sure that you do have that safety plan in place, and that you do have everything ready, and that if the abuse escalates, you have to get out of there. You have to stay alive and keep yourself alive. So we've got about a minute left, and we'll continue on tomorrow morning with this article, looking at the Help Guide article, and we'll just continue with that. We're going to start tomorrow at the cycle of violence in domestic abuse. And we have about a minute left. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and I'm happy to stand with them. Check out our website at http://dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. And we have some great information on there regarding all kinds of abuse, child sexual abuse, and how to get help. If you're a parent and you're having trouble and you think you might be abusing your child, or maybe you are and you are, there's help out there for you, and this can stop, right? The cycle of abuse can stop. And I want to make a special mention. This is a website. It's for survivors of sexual abuse, child sexual abuse. It's This Tangled Web, and it's a great survivors website. Let me tell you, www.thistangledweb.co.uk. and just type into your browser this tangled web, and it will come up. And there's all kinds of information on there regarding, there's poetry, there's links, there's Just Jess, Survivor's blog, all kinds of great information on there regarding adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse, and there's art on there, and the abuse and the abuser, all kinds of information regarding child sexual abuse. And I just wanted to make a special mention of that because I personally know this person, and I just think this website is awesome, as I'm a survivor of child sexual molestation, and so I know what it's like. And so if you're looking for a good website for survivors, for adult survivors of child sexual abuse, go to thistangledweb.co.uk. Everybody, have a great night. Take care. I'll be back on tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, for child abuse prevention, and human rights abuse prevention is up to us. Continuing on with this article, The Cycle of Violence and Domestic Violence. And I just hope that y'all have a great night. Be very safe this weekend in everything that you do. Make sure you keep yourself safe, keep your family safe, keep your children safe if you have children, and get the information, get the facts, and learn how to report abuse properly, and just make sure you take care of yourselves. Have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye.